and welcome. I'm John McCarthy, Senior Reporter at The Drum, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Anna Doble, Digital Editor at the BBC's World Service, and she's going to lay out some of the big changes in media this year. As well as having an extensive career in radio, Channel 4 and in digital publishing, we're very lucky to have Anna chairing the Drum Awards for online media. So over the next 10 minutes or so, we'll dig into media evolution and what Anna expects from the best entrants. So thanks for coming, Anna. Let's just jump straight into the first question, which is quite complicated. And it's obviously in your day-to-day job, you oversee, the BBC World Service and online social video and podcasting. And I was wondering if you could give me a quick outline of some of the changes you've observed in each of these sectors over the last year, which is quite a broad question, but let's give it a shot.
Thank you, John. Lovely to be here with you. So my job at World Service pretty much involves taking anything that starts life as radio or audio and giving it a digital life, essentially. So making sure that World Service journalism ends up, reaching people online and on social media all over the world. That's either through social media, through partners we work with, through podcasts, through video, so lots of different things. So in the last year, I think we've all found different and difficult and tough ways of adapting to the world of remote working. I think in some respects, digital teams, online teams who are all taking part in these awards had a bit of a head start because we already knew about kind of techniques for speaking, remotely or working using digital tools that bring us together when we're not together, and sharing digital files and all those slightly tedious aspects of journalism and media. So I'm guessing that we've all had to bring people with us who are perhaps not so used to the idea of file kind of uploads and downloads and using things like Slack or Zoom or whatever the tools that have worked for you and your team. But I think what's happened is everybody's reached a sort of middle ground now. So when we get back to the office, hopefully later in 2021, we'll have a better mix of skills across the board. I feel that that's a real positive, apart from the fact that we've not been able to hang out. We've learned those things together.
We've all forcibly been upskilled. There's been a few Zoom kerfuffles along the way, but we got there in the end. We might have one of those by the end of this interview as well, who knows. The next question is, it's quite a broad question, they usually are. What's the main challenges you've seen in digital media? Obviously at the Drum we've observed some funding issues and lots of cuts across the industry, but I'm just curious to know what you've observed specifically.
Yeah, I mean, we know there's been some really tough times across the industry with companies changing the way they work. In some cases, some newsrooms not having a physical HQ anymore. I mean, that would be a seismic shift for the BBC. But I also think, as I said, there's been an opportunity for digital teams to become kind of the mainstream way of working. And one thing I've really noticed, because I work at World Service, is perhaps in the past, with us being in London as our kind of main hub of creative activity, when we've worked with teams from around the world, so our bureaus and also contributors from other parts of the world, we've tended to have them piped in, into our meetings. But those that are in the room are obviously going to have a stronger connection or have a louder voice, literally in some cases. So I think that there's been a sort of a democratizing aspects of this strange world where we're just 2D beings now, because I can have a meeting, and I have had fantastic creative meetings with somebody who's in India, somebody's in Nigeria, somebody's in the US, and we're all equals because there isn't a dominant sort of London voice there, or this sense of the people around the physical table getting more of a say. We're all equal. So I do think there's something to hang on to there. But I also acknowledge that it's been really tough for people who no longer do have a physical space to return to, or whose jobs have entirely changed during this time.
That's a really good point, and many of us do miss the newsrooms. Although, yeah, we have teams in APAC and New York that we sort of are working closer with, I believe. So let's hopefully keep that going. And this year, we've especially seen reporters and newsrooms get closer to their audiences, just on the basis that we're all sharing the same experience, the pandemic. Do you think there's any lasting benefit from that? Do you think we are closer to our audiences now?
I think it's a really interesting question, because I guess this story, more than any story in journalism we can think of, certainly in our careers, has affected everybody on planet Earth. It's a story with tentacles that run through us all. So I hope that that means that journalists have actually, because they've been living through this story themselves, have actually been able to think more like their audience, target audience members. So, adapting the way they go about their journalism to actually serve people directly. I think some of the most successful BBC news content has been where you put the person in the centre. So tell me about rising cases in my area where I live. Tell me what the numbers are from my part of the world, or when am I going to get the vaccine? Not that people are self-centered, but of course we fundamentally all are wanting to know how this affects us and our families and our jobs. So I do think that this story has really changed the way we think about audiences, and hopefully has made us more responsive to kind of the really vital public health information that people need, and at the right time and in the right format.
Well, I do hope we see more journalists champion causes, or whether it's answering marketing questions like I do sometimes, or some of the bigger issues, we are all closer to that. That brings us on to the next question. You are going to be our chair. Thank you for that. What sort of work are you looking for? What sort of newsroom or website or work will best stand out and stand the best chance of winning our awards?
Well, I'm very honoured to be the chair, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how people have adapted in this crazy year that we've been talking about. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the techniques that others have used, because I think they'll be inspiring for me and the next projects I'm looking after. I think overall, I would be looking for journalism that has connected deeply with audiences and has made a real difference, and really kind of given the audience a deeper understanding of what we're all going through, or seeing things from other points of view as well. So I think because it's 2021, we're right in the midst of this. We're coming to the end, hopefully, of the kind of the worst, but we're still in it, so we can't look back yet and have a perspective. I think we're living in a time that will be in the history books. I mean, what we've experienced will be studied. There'll be dissertations written about this time in terms of how we communicated, the psychological effects of this time. So I think journalism that can capture, real social kind of history, really, we're talking about, I think that will really stand out and be something for future generations to look on as well.
Well, I wish I heard that inspiring speech a year ago, maybe. Well, there you go. And then that sort of leads us on to the next question. I always like to ask people to make some predictions on the trends they're going to see. It's a very difficult question to answer, and sometimes we come back to them and make sure they were accurate. But and obviously we're speaking of a very broad digital media space. But let's make some predictions.
Oh, it is always a tough question. I think we've been spending so much time at home. Our digital consumption has shifted. It's not so much driven by, say, commuting or habits that were part of our normal daily lives before. So I think people have become a bit more fussy about what they like, because it's not consumed according to a time slot quite like it was. You choose, for example, I'm a big podcast fan. I think they're having a really great era and a real renaissance from the sort of first wave of podcast consumption maybe 10 years ago. So I think podcasts have still got a long way to go, and I think there's a really competitive market out there for daily news, for series that really capture us and compel us to binge listen, and then for all the niches in between, because the wonderful thing about podcasting is you can find an audience about the most small and niche thing out there and build a kind of a community around it. I also think disinformation is one of the watchwords of our time journalistically. So how we turn the tide and work with public information that people can trust, what are the formats and the ways we can really battle online disinformation and win back trust across the board, and give people a clear sense of where to go to really understand things truthfully. I think we've been through COVID, we've been through a very tricky US election period where lots of disinformation and hoax content flew around. It's not the end, it's the beginning. This is the world we live in now. And I think harnessing the internet to kind of defeat misleading information is the era we're now in for the next probably 5 to 10 years.
Again, it's been very eye-opening, and hopefully it's imbued a lot of journalists and our entrants with some purpose. Call out the fake information, and stick to your high standards. That's what people want. Finally, I have a question, and it's why is it important this industry thrives? We've touched on that a bit, but let's get on our high horse a bit and give ourselves a bit of a pat in the back, just a tiny one.
I'm always happy to jump on my mediumly high pony. So yeah, I mean, again, the last year has sort of shown us more than ever why accurate information, high quality reporting, and really trusted journalism is essential for democracy to function. That sounds a bit grand, but you did ask me to mount my horse. I think, doing all of that, truth sharing and myth busting, all the rest of it, but coupled with entertaining people. We've seen in the last 9-10 months the need to really give people something to look forward to. People stuck at home. I think we can be really proud as an industry that we've managed to balance out what we do for people digitally and how we keep people engaged with the world and give them a sense of forward momentum when they are stuck at home. So well done everybody for getting everybody else through it.
And that's brilliant. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. I can't wait to see who you decide is the cream of the crop. And also remember, we have a lot of comprehensive media coverage on our site. I have a future media briefing every Thursday, which you can sign up for. And I think that's all the things I need to plug. So thank you very much for hanging around, and I hope to see you at the awards. Cheers. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, John.